What does faith look like before the answer? I I'm in the process. Hadassah's already out, and I'm working on actually a story for David now. And I love taking all the Bible stories we grew up with as kids, and regardless of what kind of religious background you came from, a lot of those stories are kind of, um, part of a little bit of the knowledge that most all of us have. I'm not saying everybody does. I know there's some people that are like, well, really? What's that story? I've never heard it before. But, a lot of those, we at least have heard them or seen excerpts from them in a movie or a TV show or those kind of things. But we don't usually really look at, we gloss over all of the things and make that person's life some kind of perfect beginning to end kind of a situation. Or, we even do like a couple of the really traditional Easter movies do. And we make the pain and suffering that Jesus went through very, very real and very painfully apparent. But even in those, we have a tendency to kind of gloss over the messy middle, the reality of what I like to call a Tuesday. Because in most of those retellings, we don't really sit for hours with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, praying, crying, begging, saying, God, I know why I'm here. It wasn't some kind of shock, but it still wasn't something he wanted to do either. Not really. I mean, no real human wants to die and know that this is the end. He was willing to. He was totally committed to doing it. That doesn't mean he was looking forward to it, having some kind of party, you know. I think a lot of times we look at the Last Supper and we think of it as a big shindig rather than just kind of sitting with your closest friends, trying to get enough strength to be able to do that thing that comes next. And finding that in that, even if you want to look at it as celebration, it isn't enough. And you have to really just say what you feel. I think we miss that. I think we miss the confessions. I'd really love to know, and eventually I will write the story of Daniel, and I have a feeling that this is going to get in it. I'd really love to know what David was thinking, or what Daniel was thinking as they closed the door behind him in the lion's den. Sure, it's possible. And in some of the stories we hear, there's massive amounts of faith that just overwhelm the evidence. And sometimes that faith is stepped up to, it isn't just immediate. And I don't know. I think a lot of times we take the biggest of situations. I'll use a perfect example for you. I love the story of Peter walking on the water. We've all heard it a million times. But what I think we skip over is a couple of really important things. Peter does walk on the water. There are 11 other dudes in the boat. Peter's the only one that stepped out. And so much so that even when they see Peter walking on the water, none of the others that you could probably say by name, none of the others hop out of the boat and go walking after. It isn't like all 12 of them went out and Peter was the only one that failed. He's the only one that stepped out of the stupid boat. And we get caught in the fact that Peter had a normal human moment and he began sinking. And we build whole sermons on, the keep your eyes on Jesus and all of that. Hey, Paul, glad to have you here with us. Austrian writer, Glad to see you. So I think it's important to realize Jesus never gave Peter a lecture. He just took him by the hand and helped him walk back on the water back to the boat. Paul, glad to have you here with us. And in that walking, there was a kind of triumph. But again, that skips us over the sinking. The moment when we don't want to have to judge Peter for what he did, we can just see the reality of sometimes in our own life, we feel like we're sinking. Sometimes today's absolute situation is just real. That doesn't question our faith. That doesn't mean we didn't jump out of the boat and walk on the water. It doesn't make us any less than. And I want you to hear that today. I want you to hear specifically that wherever you are, the questions that come up don't invalidate the things you believe in. The specific truth is that being genuine is the first step. Being true to yourself, being true to the promises you know God gave you, and being truthful enough with God to say, this is where I am right this minute. And letting that be just as holy. David has a whole psalm that starts out, how long, O Lord? How long is this stuff going to go on, God? It's one of the most amazing parts of David is the fact that in all the circumstances, he just gave God who he was. Sometimes he was right, and sometimes he was horribly wrong, but he was just himself. So today, my encouragement to you is not do you have enough faith, not hold on just for one more day, none of those kind of things. Just be real. Because maybe the question isn't, do you have enough faith to stop asking? Maybe the question really is, who are you asking? Because that question and the answer to it is the most important, I think, of all. Thanks for joining me here today around the fire, us together. I appreciate you. And I hope until we're together again next time, you have a great week.